Commissioners Workshop, what's the 17th? July 17th, 2025. Anybody here would like to speak in front of the commissioners, bring up any topic you wish. So we're open to, please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, good morning, commissioners. My name is Nick Bundren. I reside at 620 East Broad Street, Columbus, Ohio. Took a quick trip up this morning because I want to talk to you about renewable energy. I work for a nonprofit called the Ohio Land and Liberty Coalition. Our mission is to build conservative support for renewable energy across the state of Ohio. However, we're doing a new initiative in which we learn from commissioners in all corners of this great state. We like to call it the 88 County Tour of Ohio. We've got 8 standardized questions, but if I am on a time crunch, I can condense that. I believe y'all are number 50 since January. So we've been quite busy learning a lot from all of our friends at every board of county commissioners across this state. So I'm ready to get started with the questions whenever y'all are.
Go ahead.
Cool. Just starting with the basics. If you had to rate yourself on a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being I'm an energy industry expert, 1 being what the heck is a solar panel, what would you rate yourselves in terms of knowledge on renewable energy?
Commissioner?
9, because you can always learn more.
That's a great answer.
3.
3?
Because I know what I don't know.
I'll be middle of the road, probably 5.
All right. Varying answers across the board. I like that. So has Lake County encountered at any level renewable energy projects, whether it be wind, solar, or battery storage?
Yes. We have had commissioners on the board of a nonprofit that has promulgated windmills across the highways. We also have a grant that was awarded to Paynesville for a solar farm. So we've definitely had a lot of experience with wind and solar.
Yeah, I know we have the pending grant that's to take the Paynesville power plant offline, a coal plant, and put in the solar field. And I know there's a lot of private business that do have windmills along Route 90. And
I'd seen some of them coming in. I thought, wow, that's neat.
LeadCo.
Okay. What was the response from the community as well as from the board when that was going through its permitting processes? Was it positive, neutral, negative? Walk me through that.
Both.
Okay.
I mean, on the positive end, bringing money into the county, certainly want to keep energy prices down and energy accessibility up. Negative end, the statement was made, the cloudiest city in Ohio has solar. Is that efficient? So I think that there is a real concern as to whether or not some sources of energy are trendy but inefficient, and whether or not we really need to double down on what we know works, whether it be natural gas or nuclear power.
I think that, whatever you want to, I think that from how I feel about it is we need to have a very diverse power grid. So any kind of energy from any source should be available. Being that the last I heard, Ohio as a state is 15% power deficient. It's tough for us to bring new business in, new things, not knowing if we have the capability to offer the power needed. So wherever that works the best, I think, and is most cost effective to provide those, whether it's natural gas, air, solar, so I think is what we should be doing or should be looking at.
I'm still at 3.
What I love about my job is that I get to say that it's not either or, it's all of the above. I grew up in coal country in Virginia. I understand the importance of keeping the lights on for America. What would you say the most general perceptions are from a board perspective on renewable energy? Do you think it is the way of the future? Do you think it is a Band-Aid to bridge the gap between conventional and more nuclear? What are you thinking here?
I think that the term renewable energy is a misnomer because nothing creates a permanent free source of power, at least no technology we currently have. Solar panels wear out over time. Windmills wear out over time and have enormous ecological impacts on the aviary population, on birds. So everything has negative externalities and everything wears out over time. There's no such thing as truly renewable energy. The question is what power sources are safe, reliable, effective, and ultimately cost effective. Because if you can't afford the kilowatt of power, it's really pointless to generate it in the first place. I think people at the end of the day are looking at their power bill first and foremost, and if you can't find an efficient way to deliver it, it won't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I just think I haven't met anybody that says that we should hurt the environment. So they want to do the best what's for the environment, but as Commissioner Pleshnik said, at the end of the day, it's what they pay out on their bills. So as these costs continue to increase, and we just found out that electric bills are going to go up. So again, that diversified power grid would, I think, ideal. So I guess in Lake County here we have a nuclear power plant. It's done well for us. It's pretty steady. It's been online for 30 years.
Going on 40.
I think it's been more than that. Isn't it like 40? Because I think the initial license is 40 and they just applied for their first 20-year extension.
So, I mean, if we could figure out a way to use the untapped resources there to add more nuclear, I would be for that too. So I think it's just, it's a difficult thing to put everything in what they are calling a renewable energy, especially where we live in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say my answer is kind of in between both of those. I mean, I don't care where we're getting the power from, so long as it's not harming our environment, right? So to the best of our ability to have a diversified portfolio of power sources, I think is smart. But once again, it's a cost. It's a cost conversation. I don't know where renewable energies fell into the current energy bill that just got passed in this state. I don't know.
Are you referring to HB 15?
Yeah, that disaster for local governments that was. We are 15% deficient, but I'm not a large fan of, subsidizing one industry over another just so that, I had a conversation with these folks when they came in here, and, there is a cost to the local infrastructure and the locals that have any of these power plants. And so to that point, if renewable energies or these, solar and wind and these type of things don't come with the type of tax abatement or punishment, if you will, to the locals, then I would probably be all for them and more of an advocate for them. But yes, anything we can do to, I know it's a problem, and I know we've had I've had conversations about potential other private industry going into our county that requires energy, and we have energy needs in this county, and so whatever we can do to improve that without harming the environment, sure.
It's so funny. I think in just about probably 95% of the counties we've visited, we've heard the talks of subsidies. And what upsets me the most is that the last 4 years have done more damage to the renewable energy industry than the first 25 years. I mean, if you're talking about it from a business perspective, you're going to want to incentivize yourself every year to be more cost effective, more competitive, and more efficient. And that's what the industry did until the big government came in and just started handing out free checks. And that also hyper-politicized it too and made my job a lot harder. Glad there's job security there at least. But it's been so frustrating, but also very enlightening to learn that it has been politicized, but not for the last 20 years, the last 4 years. I've just got one more question, gentlemen, and then I'll give you your time back. Brownfields. We hear so much about brownfields. And the possibility of putting either battery storage, wind, or solar on those brownfields, it's kind of a two-parter. One, are there a lot of brownfield sites here in Lake County? And two, if there are, what would the process be to begin developing that, but what would the board's openness to that be?
So you're describing what's actually happening in Painesville now. It is an old, landfill area where they're putting the solar farm on. So we are redeveloping that brownfield. And I think there's an openness to it, certainly, but at the end of the day, that plant is going to compete with Perry, is going to compete with the natural gas plant, and ultimately, our taxpayers are being squeezed every which way. Their water bill, their property tax bill, their electricity bill. We have to remember that as high-minded as people like to be when they're sitting in their ivory tower or behind their mahogany desk, if real people can't afford it, it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, I everywhere we can use a brownfield to produce energy, I say great. We do have some here in Lake County. Jason probably knows a lot more, but that's exactly where we're looking to put that grant for Painesville into something that can't be developed in anything else. So it's an ideal situation for that.
Right.
So that's kind of how, what else are we going to do there? It works great there. So.
And I'm relatively new to this position, but I don't know if you've met with some of the surrounding counties, but we're a member of NOACA, the Northeast Ohio Area Coordinating Agency. They have brownfield committees, they have brownfield grants and stuff like that. So we absolutely are a part of trying to use the brownfields to the best of our abilities on these things.
Yeah, it's been fun coming up here. We met with Geauga a couple of months ago. I've got Ashtabula in a week or two. Between you and me, guys, this is like my favorite part of Ohio. But anyways, gentlemen, thank you so much. We would love to be a resource, both myself and my team. I believe you have our contact information. If you hear of anything, if you have a question about anything that we're seeing across the state, do not hesitate to reach out. I'm always up. I'm always working. I claim residency for my car. So anyways, thank you very much.
Your last question was where to eat. Right out here is St. Clair. If you're going for lunch, just go down to Crowley's, and you're going to want to get the fried bologna sandwich.
Okay.
Oh, smash burger.
I don't know. I'm from the South. I love some good fried bologna.
Fried bologna. He says from Virginia.
I can get down with that.
Enjoy it.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Anybody else?
Good morning. My name is Roy Blaylock. I'm from Perry Village, North Perry Village.
Nice to meet you.
So I understand Mr. Beveridge is a resident now.
I'm a Perry Village resident.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I know he's distinguishing it. But I'm 4899 Lockwood Road in Perry. I was asked to join the Joint Economic Development District for Perry on behalf of North Perry Village, particularly to evaluate the data center. I'm a prior engineer at the nuclear power plant. I was there for 10 years. I left there about a year ago. When Vistra took over, I was offered a severance, and I love it. So I would consider myself semi-retired. So I have a pretty good background in regards to that. I also trade stocks quite a bit, and I trade quantum computing and other data type things. And I really took a deep dive into this before, because really they wanted to move on because they had done the homework, and that was part of my job, was to evaluate whether our folks did the homework. And I was surprised, to be honest with you, because as an engineer, my job was to evaluate the systems and basically say, are these systems, do they need work? Do they need replaced? And really deep dive into stuff. That was my job. So when I had the opportunity to do this, I took it seriously. I called a lot. I called the gentleman that's wants to put the data center in there. I talked to a lot of people about it and really got a better understanding of why it's being proposed and why it's there, right? And we kind of talked about that a little bit. One of the big things is the power plant, right? So you have the power, so you're not going to have to add power, a power source to this data center. It's right there. The transmission lines are there. Some of our colleagues went down to Columbus, south of Columbus. New Albany, and took a look at it, which I was proud of them that they took the time to do that. And then they did do some research on whether the decibel levels were high. how it impacted actual neighbors. They actually talked to neighbors. You know, they just saw a guy on the street and his house was right backed up against the data center. And they took the opportunity to do that. So we do have a, what they call them, a public forum meeting coming up next Thursday. I would really appreciate if you guys would show up and get informed, because I don't know everything, and I appreciate your honesty when you talk about stuff. You know, you only know so much, or you don't know what you don't know. I mean, that's a common term in the nuke industry. You know, unless you know what's going on, you don't. You know, so I appreciate that. So it is at the community center up by the lake on 6 o'clock. Let me make sure. Apparently it didn't recognize my face. So yeah, July 24th, 6 p.m. at the Perry Community Center. So please attend, because I'm going to be there just to, you know, help. Some of the things that folks have, I don't have Facebook. I was explaining that. I'm not on Facebook, so I haven't.
Smart man. Go ahead.
Well, I learned early on, because I own a brewery restaurant in Berea and Madison for 20 years. So I got used to my folks working for me complaining that our beer doesn't taste good or something like that, you know. Right. And the fact of the matter is everybody has different tastes, right? Right. So anyway, so that was one of the things I really wanted to address. They do have some new numbers that came out on how it impacts it, you know, the billion dollar build out, how it's dispersed. I think you, Jason, you gave me a little more information on how the concerns from your perspective and how that transfers to the schools and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think we still are going to have some conversations with the Department of Education as far as exactly what those numbers are. I was on the phone call when that spreadsheet was built. And,
okay.
And I'm not disputing it by any means.
No.
But as anybody in Ohio knows, that school funding in Ohio is only understood by like 3 people, and they're all in some office down in Columbus. And
I agree.
And so we just want to have a conversation. 2 people, sir? Thank you. We were 3. I'm sure the third moved out for education purposes. But we're in conversation with the Department of Education to try and get an accurate assessment and feel for it. Obviously, then the other conversations we're having are further down the road, but
right.
I've tried to have a conversation with the developer. I was on the call with him as well, about, you know, what are some of the concerns from the school standpoint on a financial side of things.
Sure.
So, to be honest with you, I don't have an opinion yet. As I said before, I don't know what I don't know, and that's what I've tried to reiterate. The conversation, I'll admit, I told the gentleman who wants to develop it, as a county commissioner, I want a data center in my county.
Yeah.
Right? These things are $1,000 a square foot on average to build, and they're talking about building 4 250,000 square foot buildings. That's the size, Jason tells me, I think, of the super Walmart in Madison.
4 or 5 of those.
Yeah, 4 or 5 of those, right? So 1 million square feet of data center space is about $1 billion valuation.
Right.
Now, those forecasts that you're referring to is when it's done. As I understand, the build out
it'll take time.
Takes some time.
Yep.
The other thing that I've had explained to me from New Albany was it's I think a 30 or a 40 year 100% tax abatement.
And see, and that's it's confusing, because I was kind of getting informed on that as well. That's not always the way the deal goes out. The deal is made. The deal is made by us, right?
Yeah, correct. Wholeheartedly agree.
And well, what my concern is people are jumping the gun and saying this is a bad thing, when that's just an example. And maybe that example might be actually, what I'm finding out, might even be a good thing, depending on how you fund the schools. You know, what was the term?
Renewable energy projects use payment in lieu of taxes or pilot programs.
Yeah.
It's guaranteed per megawatt. I don't know if it's the same.
Well, what we do know, even though the numbers are still being chased down to get to an exact point, is that depending on the size of the abatement, it would either be a 3 million or so positive to the school district or a 3 million or so negative to the school. It depends on how much abatement's granted. Now, if it's 100%, it would cost the school district money. It would cost everybody money. If it's 50%, or less, it's probably break even. If it's less than 50%, it starts to be a net positive to the school in rough numbers. So it really does depend on the negotiation. And my understanding is that Perry Village would probably lead that because most of the property is in their jurisdiction. There need to be some agreements with, I guess, the JED that abuts them, which is why you have a joint task force. But that's kind of a huge open question is, realistically, what abatement is expected by that company to come there? And yes, part of it is what the village will agree to, but if there's like a deal break number where the business says, we're simply not coming unless we get X, I mean, that starts to paint the picture too, but nobody knows that yet.
Well, we're getting there, and this is why I want you guys to be there, and I want you to help inform. I mean, this is a big deal. This is as important as the Perry nuclear power plant.
And no offense to the Perry Village Council or the township, and this is what we've talked about, is this is a perfect example of a project that probably needs to be handled at a county level. Right, and I said this to the mayor to his face. I said, this isn't. Yes, it's going into Perry Village.
Yeah.
But these taxes are paid across the county, and abatements would have ripple effects across the county, and sewers and utilities are handled by the county.
Sure.
And so this, in my opinion, and
I think
again, I'm here 6.5 months. But I don't think the commissioner's office or anybody at the county necessarily was engaged on the project early on, which I think is why there's a lot of ramping up of information gathering. Once again, I don't have an opinion yet. And so that's what I'm trying. And I do have an opinion that I think it's good for the community. Right?
Well, my
bring in
recommendation
$1
for
billion
you is that you're not a 3. You should be at least a 7 all across the board of understanding how this project is going to go. And I'm going to hold myself accountable as a resident.
Yep.
I don't hold any other. I didn't really want to go on another board.
Yeah.
Okay, honestly, I got plenty to do right now. I'm fine. I'm overwhelmed at times, but my point is I do think this is the appropriate time for you guys to jump in. I think it's an opportunity if we don't understand it and we could lose it, an opportunity that we don't want to have that situation happen.
Correct, sir.
Yep.
So to that point, Jason, is it possible that we could direct that someone from the Port Authority, definitely the Lake Development Authority, attend this because they are the economic development arm for the commissioners? So could we have someone from the port make sure they're there?
Yeah, I can talk to Patrick, and I've spoke to Patrick, and the LDA, is the cousin of county government, but the leader in economic development, and they do not want to speak without the commissioner's concurrence.
Well, this is not about having
No, I
them
understand.
speak. This is about
Yeah.
having them be there to be educated and to answer any
Yes.
questions. If a resident wants to know what resources are available from the county, they should be capable of explaining their role.
So one of the,
That's absolutely correct, but sales exempt, I forget the title, and I would defend Patrick on this. He's not going to go make that commitment if you guys aren't supportive of the
No,
project.
but I do think it would be useful for him to say, this is what we can do.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
If ultimately the community wants this, these are the tools that we have, and we're here to collect information because we are the economic development arm for the Lake County Commissioners. I'm not asking them to take a position, nor would I want them to take a position without the board directing them. But right now, I think that your point is well taken, that there needs to be serious representation there. And the truth is, we work through the Lake Development Authority on projects of this size, so it's important that we have our expert there to make sure they're up to speed, and also to be able to say, if this is something the community wants, here are the tools we have.
well, sometimes, as they've said in the past, and I have no problem saying this, sometimes the community doesn't know what they need, right? And this might be one of those situations. And here's one of the cool things that I can brag about that I brought to the table. I said they were concerned about the way the property is split up, right? Because it's township, Perry Village, and then JED. Okay, the JED is going to retain the most valuable part, which is on Route 20. Okay. In addition, I said, well, with all these different entities, why don't we look at annexing whatever property we sell them? Turns out it was a great idea, right? Because now we can collect a full 2% on income tax for that, whereas they could have taken the office buildings and put them on the township property and got 0. So, it's those things that we need to, with everybody's education as a whole, we need to embrace this. Now, understanding why did they choose this spot, right? Anybody have an idea?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
200 acres, one owner, and a power line.
Power line's pretty important, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so down in New Albany and other places that want to expand their data centers, they're going to have to put those high power lines in. We are not.
They're going to get the benefit of the Intel plant, and that's going on already, to be honest with that.
That's a good
Yeah.
point. However, ours are right there. And what people, I've heard this, like I'm hearing it secondhand. People are concerned about power outages.
It's different power.
It is. People don't understand that, but people need to know that. They need to understand that that power is transmitted off to the grid, not to a local municipality, which is the case. So we need, as leaders, and I say that wholeheartedly because I don't want to be a leader, but people need to understand the misinformation that's going on right now. The reason why it's there is it also has the fiber optic lines. There's 3 sets of fiber optic lines on Route 20. There's one that goes along the railroad tracks. Having the ability to pick and choose your provider is very important for these data centers because they can jump from one line to another, right? This is a premium spot for a data center. My understanding is the ground isn't very cultivatable anymore. It's been kind of burned out and it's kind of semi-brown, right? I don't know if that for sure, if it really meets that technical thing, but understand, even if this gentleman can't get it over the line, embracing it from a community standpoint is very important in understanding how it's going to impact and how we cannot pass up this opportunity if it doesn't.
As I said to the gentleman, as a Lake County Commissioner, I'd love to have a data center in my county. I just need to do my due diligence and work with the community of what is the right location. And I'm going to look at it from an economic standpoint. I'm going to look at it from a county administration standpoint. And you made a comment earlier, sometimes a community doesn't know what it needs, right?
Yeah.
As leaders, my job, our job, is to disseminate accurate information and to give our
Absolutely.
opinion. At the end of the day, though, unfortunately or fortunately, it's still America.
Yeah.
And if the voters in that town don't want it, then it ain't going to happen. And so I do think that the information is key.
Yep.
That had been a problem. And I'm thankful that we're still going to move forward, even though some stuff has happened with applications being pulled and potential rescinding of zoning, blah, 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 and all that in the referendum. I'm still thankful that they're going to move forward with the July 24th meeting. I do think the information needs to get out there. I was already planning on coming. Lord willing, the beef show at the fair will be done by that time, so hopefully I can get over there. But yes, it absolutely does need to, that information from the village and from the buyer, the potential buyer and developer, I think is important to get that data out there.
Well, I think it's also important that the community understands what money comes in, what money comes out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm more than happy to have that conversation. I'm here to tell you,
we can have that on the side. And
what we can have right now, the money coming from Vistra is going to decline after this energy bill that just came out.
Yeah.
I'll bet every dollar in my pocket right now that at some point in the next 3, 5, 10 years, we're going to see a dip and a reduction in what Vistra is paying in taxes that goes into this community.
And I would not agree that it should. You know,
We don't agree with that.
Yeah,
unfortunately, you and I aren't state reps or state senators yet.
Well, but we need to if we're
Yes.
going to represent, then we need to say. I mean, I'm looking at Vistra's evaluation when I'm trading their stock, and I'm saying when they before they got the nuclear power plants, their previous nuclear power plant that they owned, their stock wasn't that high. Okay, and then I think there's a lot of discussion that needs to, an understanding from our perspective, including my own, that I would like to know as well, because their stock is threefold from when they bought. So don't
Writing your own legislation and getting it passed through the state of Ohio is pretty good for stock prices.
I know. So, but yeah, so we'll fight that battle. My point is though, is understand what are our expectations of our citizens as far as what's being paid for, because I'm from North Perry Village. There's a lot of entitlement there, right? And I've paid a lot of people's taxes because we don't have certain tax benefits, as a reciprocation, I think is is that the term?
All I know is I can't use your boat ramp.
You can if you pay $1,000. You know what that means? That's about what I pay.
Right?
So and quite honestly, we have every year we give one pass away. So
Raffle.
We do.
That's a smart. Silent auction it next time, would you?
and it happens every year.
All right.
So I would love for you to come to the boat ramp,
Yeah.
but it's also it's an economy of scale.
Yeah. Right.
How much can we handle and still maintain the services?
I think from our perspective, or I should say from my perspective, we've heard rumors through the years of a data center. We've never seen anything come through us, our building department, anything at the county level. So when this all took place in the previous few weeks, we got emails, calls. Hey, we can't speak from a base of knowledge on this.
Yeah, Jason indicated that, and I apologize because and I told you quite honestly when I started this discussion, I didn't know about it, but when I did take a look at it, I don't see and I want people to prove me wrong. I don't see a downside to this. I really don't, from an impact standpoint. And here's think of any other industry or any other folks that would buy that property and do something with it. What could be there? Do you want a concrete plant? Do you want, the amount of folks that'll be going in and out of there is minimal. They're operating a data center.
Yep.
Your impact on your roads, your infrastructure, everything is very low impact. People need to understand that. What if we're not going to do that, then what are we going to do? How do we get this property sold? Because it's been up for sale how many years? At least probably 10 to 12.
I think the meeting's a good start. And
Yeah.
I think you should have more of those meetings, but also you have to tell the story. Nothing else is going to come here. I think if you did a study, which
They did, unfortunately, in 2017.
yeah,
and-
they're going to tell you
and the
what.
study said, don't put industrial here, put a town center or put senior housing. And
So here's the worst case scenario, and in my view on this. If you look at the layout, right? Which the worst case scenario, they buy the property and it never happens, right? But they buy the property and it's sold, and you've sold the property, right? That's not a bad thing. But if you look at the way they're laying out their phases, and I want you guys just to pass that around real quick. Start here. The phases actually set it up as almost like a town center because of the way the buildings are going to be structured. So if they go and they start building this out and it ends up in a town center configuration, then it fails in a configuration and they brought the utilities in and they put it there. That's not on the back of us, right? So then they fail and they can't get folks to come in and bring their data centers there. Maybe the quantum computing computers take over and they're smaller footprint. But at least all the phases that are going in support the possibility of a town center later
once
on.
again, that's the first I've ever seen that.
Well, and I was given this information, and this is the problem, is we don't have lines of communication as much as we want to. I'm looking at it from my standpoint, and I'm going, there's a town center right there. So even 20 years from now, we no longer need these data centers. The infrastructure's in place, everything's ready to go, and you got a town center.
Well, I salute you for taking advantage of the communication line that we've set up, right? When I came here and President Rekovich took over that seat, we talked about the fact that let's have our meetings be business meetings, but twice a month, let's get together and have these conversations. So if folks want to come in and talk about topics, this is the appropriate time to have these communications. And once again, our doors are always open to have these conversations with anybody in the county.
I'm gonna go to this meeting. If you guys can't attend, I will come back and see you, and we'll decide whether this is good or bad.
Yeah, we'll be there.
I'm
I'll be there.
I'm okay with it being good or bad. It doesn't matter to me. Like you said, it's more important that everybody understands it, and that my biggest concern is that if you get a lot of misinformation out there, and people basically kill the project. And then I'm from Madison. I grew up in Madison. You know what happened to Madison? They don't have a nuclear power plant in their backyard paying for their schools.
Right.
I was on the board as a trustee for Madison schools when we had to get the schools rebuilt. And you know what they did? They voted down the first time to get new schools. 66% of the money was going to be provided by the tobacco money. People didn't understand that. Instead, what happened is the leadership was threatening them, if you don't pass this levy, we're going to take busing away. And I knew this guy. I mean, the guy that was our superintendent. And I told him, I said, no, threatening people doesn't get results.
That's
Understanding
they all say the same thing.
Right, understanding the benefit. And that's what we need to change. We need to change and understand. I don't have a problem with accepting the truth. If I'm wrong, just tell me. But I want everybody to be, especially you folks, and that's why I'm here today, is understanding. I came in yesterday, and this is my next thing before I forget. I came in yesterday to pay my taxes for my building in Madison Village because my tenants aren't. They're supposed to, but I made sure it got paid, right? And I walk up to the door over here, and I got this gentleman sitting there, hey, do you want to sign my petition for abolishing property tax? I said, maybe. Are you talking about abolishing or reviewing it and changing the way the tax rate, right? He goes, well, you know, the rich, they buy stuff all the time. We're just going to go ahead and tax them more in sales tax. And I'm like, well, that's weird because poor people have to buy stuff too. Yeah. I said, and he mentioned your name. He goes, well, he's fronting this drive. And I go, well, have you talked to Mr. Bushnick about this? And he says, well, no. But, you know, this is the way we feel about it. I go, I understand that. But how are you going to pay for schools, roads, and everything else if you don't have property tax? I'm okay with, I don't want to pay property tax. Mine went up 377%.
Mr. President, real quick. So my solution is not raising sales tax. In fact, a lot of folks have kind of raised that as a boogeyman. Don't sign it or your sales tax will go up. The dirtiest little secret in Columbus is that the Ohio Constitution explicitly says that it is the state legislature that is responsible for funding public schools.
Okay.
And they've essentially been double taxing us all these years where they've had the legal responsibility, and the Ohio Supreme Court has confirmed this in multiple cases, to pay for schools, yet instead they've allowed local property taxes to cover a majority of the cost. When they initially created the state income tax, when they created the state sales tax, it was always with the intention that it would fund local services. But over the years, the Governor Kasich of the world continued to cut the amount that the state would pay locally to force local governments to raise property taxes. The reason why you see state reps and state senators so nervous about the amendment to abolish property taxes is that tomorrow, if that happened, they'd have to foot the full bill for public schools, and it would come right out of their budget. Which ironically, the sales and income tax we've been paying, we're supposed to pay for those public schools all along. And instead, we've created this unconstitutional patchwork, and we know it's unconstitutional because the Ohio Supreme Court has said so, of property taxes where some schools are funded very well and some schools are funded very poorly, but it's coming off the backs of taxpayers that are already paying their taxes like good citizens for sales and income tax to the state, and yet that's not funding the public schools like it was initially intended to. There's the added complication of how do you fund local services that are also dependent on property taxes, but the reality of that is you can't have an amendment for the Constitution that has more than one issue in it. So if the people want a solution because they feel that their legislators aren't doing their job in solving property tax reform, where you say, I want to cut it by X, but I want to fund this service by Y, and I want to tweak this by Z, you'd have to have 3 separate amendments to do that because the single issue rule says you can't have more than one issue in one amendment, and realistically, you're never going to pass more than one at a time. So it's kind of a fake or a false argument. It's a straw man to say, why didn't you propose a solution for how you'll fund everything else in your amendment? They know why, because the law says you can't. You can only have one solution at a time. And if you talk to most of the people on the committee, the 5, as well as their supporters who have proposed this amendment to abolish property taxes, they've said point blank, You know, we know this is a blunt instrument, and it's not ideal to abolish property taxes without a comprehensive reform plan to go with it, but we can't legally do it. This is the blunt instrument we're using to make sure that the status quo is over. Either the state legislature finally does their job and cuts property taxes in a meaningful way, acknowledges that they've kind of been stealing our money all these years because they've been double charging us through property taxes on the one hand, but state income sales and taxes on the other. Unless they're willing to make that bold move and say, we're finally going to take responsibility, we're just going to take all the money away and force them to deal with it. Now, that would give them a full year, by the way, because property taxes are collected, as you know, on a year-back basis. So they'd have 12
I'm
months,
well aware I paid to my
as do we
folks.
all. So you know that they would have a full year to figure things out because it abolishes property taxes going forward, not retroactively. They'd have 12 months to then put forward their reform plan, and legally they'd have to. You can't not fund public schools. You can't not fund police and fire. Is it ideal? No. But that's the sad situation our state legislature has put seniors being taxed out of their homes, business people who aren't competitive because of the rent they're paying government, and young families that can't even afford to buy a home because of the property taxes they pay on top of a mortgage. That's the sad situation the state legislature has put people in. And I think the adjustment we're all feeling is that the status quo is the least acceptable alternative. Best case scenario, our state reps and senators wake up tomorrow and go, yikes, if we don't actually do our job for the first time in 60 years, we're going to have to do a much harder job when property taxes are abolished. Second best situation, the amendment passes and forces them to do their job. But the worst situation, I think the one that none of us are willing to accept anymore, is that we leave the system as it is, where our taxes automatically go up every time the federal government decides to print money, which is pretty much every year.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And that's the exact answer I was looking for. So I'll ask you a direct question. So should I have signed that petition?
I believe yes.
Okay. That's the, you know, I couldn't educate myself enough because I don't have, I'm a 3, right? And I really wanted to know that because, I mean, it's important that people understand that we don't have the ability, like you said, without having a single topic. So, yeah,
To
that's
your
the
point,
case.
it's misinformation, right? It goes back to the data center.
Well, I don't.
It's necessary for all of these conversations that we have that the accurate information is presented first and loudly, so that the misinformation, the confusion, is brought down to a minimum. So
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
Yep.
And we'll just leave it there, I guess, because I can't end it with that better said. So, and I truly do appreciate your opinion on that, and I'm more than willing to sign it if that's the case. So, thank you.
we'll see you on the 24th.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Patrick will be there as well.
Okay.
Excellent. So the head of our Lake Development Authority is going to be there.
Okay. And I would like to see all of you there if it's
We'll
possible.
do our best. It is the day of the fair.
I've seen you at the fair. You can come for one meeting at 6 o'clock. No, come on.
We'll
it's
see.
an hour. That's walk out in an hour.
The other unfortunate part of that is if 2 of the 3 of us are there discussing county business, then all of a sudden people raise a stink, and because it's a sunshine law and stuff like that. But I agree. We will do our best to be there. Yes.
That's the hard part. Is that we do hold ourselves accountable. We try not to raise issues and stuff like that.
Yep.
But the fact of the matter is this is why I do what I do, because I just speak the truth and it's fine, right? And I think people will understand that I truly do believe this is the biggest opportunity for Lake County in a long time.
The tax implications would be twice that what the new plan is currently paying.
In a positive way or in a negative way?
Twice what the nuclear power plant is currently paying in taxes. If this is a $1 billion facility, the tax revenue projections would be twice what the Perry nuclear
Without
power
any
plant.
abatement.
Well, property tax impact, not nearly the employee load.
Property and pup.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thanks,
See,
guys.
I'm a 3. I'm a 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else? All right, well, I guess this meeting's adjourned.